He just hadn't wanted to be around when they walked in and hoped they'd lose interest when they found nothing in the room. It was 12:30 when he got back to the dreary hotel. He always took the stairs. Elevators were a trap. He liked to be free to move around. The desk clerk nodded at him, and Luke headed upstairs. He was on the landing just below his floor when he heard a sound. It wasn't a footstep or a door. It was a click. Just that. He knew it instantly. It was a gun being cocked, and moving like the speed of sound, he headed back down the stairs on silent feet and slowed briefly only when he got to the desk. Something was off, very off. He realized they were behind him then, halfway down the stairs. There were 3 of them, and Luke wasn't going to wait and find out who they were. It occurred to him to try and talk his way out of it, but every instinct told him to run. So he did. He ran like hell. He was already down the street by the time they made it out the door at a dead run. But Luke was faster than nearly any man alive. He had run track in the joint for exercise. People said that Q was faster than the wind, and he was now. He was over a fence, behind a building, and grabbed the roof of a garage and swung over another fence. He was in the thick of the neighborhood, and he knew by then he couldn't go back to the hotel. Something was very, very wrong, and he had no idea why. He had a snub-nosed gun shoved in his jeans, and he didn't want to be caught packing arms, so he dumped it in a trash can and ran behind a building into an alley. He just kept running and figured he had lost them until he hit another fence, and suddenly a hand came up behind him and grabbed his neck in a vice-like grip. He had never felt anything so tight, and he was glad as hell he'd dumped the gun. Now all he had to do was get rid of the cop. His elbow shot into the ribs of the owner of the grip, but all he did was tighten his hold on Luke's neck and squeeze hard. Luke was dizzy almost instantly, and despite his impressive size, fell to the ground. The cop knew just where to grab. He landed a resounding kick into Luke's back, who let out a stifled groan between clenched teeth. "You son of a bitch," Luke said, grabbing for the other man's legs, and suddenly the cop was down, and they were rolling on the ground. The cop had him pinned in a matter of seconds. He was younger than Luke, in better shape, and he had been waiting for the pleasure of Q's company for months. He had followed him all across the states, and had already been in his room twice that week, and once the week before. Charlie McAvoy knew Luke Quinton better than he knew his own brother. He had gotten special permission from an interstate task force to track him for almost a year, and he knew that if it killed him, he was going to get him, and now that he had, he wasn't going to lose him. Charlie got on his knees and slammed Luke's face into the ground. Luke's nose was bleeding profusely when he looked up, just as the 2 other detectives came up behind Charlie. All 3 of them were plainclothesmen, but everything about them screamed cops. "Easy, boys, play nice," Jack Jones, the senior detective, said as he handed Charlie the cuffs. "Let's not kill him before we get him to the station." There was murder in Charlie's eyes. Jack Jones knew Charlie had wanted to make him, and why. Charlie had told him in confidence one night when he got drunk. Jack had promised him not to say anything to anyone when he saw him the next morning. But he could see what was happening to Charlie now. He was shaking with rage. Jack didn't like personal vendettas getting into business. If Luke had moved a hair to break free and run from them, Charlie would have shot him. He wouldn't have winged him or shot him in the leg. He would have killed him on the spot. The 3rd man on the team radioed for a patrol car. Their own car was several blocks away, and they didn't want to move Luke that far. They weren't going to take that chance. Luke's nose was bleeding copiously onto his shirt, and none of them offered him anything to stop it. He would get no mercy from them. Jack read him his Miranda rights, and Luke looked arrogant despite the ferocious nosebleed. He had icy eyes and a stare that took them all in and gave nothing away. Jack thought he was the coldest son of a bitch he had ever met. "I could sue you bastards for this. I think my nose is broken," he threatened, and Charlie gave him a scathing glance as the other 2 men pushed him toward the car. They shoved him into the car and told the cops driving they would meet them at the station. The 3 men were quiet on the way back to their car, and Charlie glanced at Jack as he turned on the ignition and then slumped against the seat looking pale. "How does it feel?" Jack asked him as they drove down.